Today's Talk 365 TV's Talking Wellness segment is presented by Brain Rehab Clinic.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are talking wellness with Dr. Hatch from Brain Rehab Clinic, and specifically we are talking about a really rare condition called misophonia. Now, have you ever heard of this before I started talking with you about it?
No, and it's just kind of shocking, but it's basically the brain not being wired right.
Yeah, it's a very new diagnosis. I think for a long time people just thought these were people being, a little out of control or maybe a little touchy, because it has to do with noise. So like chewing, crunching, but the most interesting thing is, like when a bird flies by or something flies by your head, your instinct is to instantly move. It's not like you make a rational decision like, I'm going to move away from what's flying at my head.
It's very primal. You just boom.
Yes, it's the part of your brain you have no control over that kicks in. Well, people who have misophonia, it's rage. And Dr. Hatch fell into it, and he tells the story of how basically misophonia founded him, and then what causes it, what's going on in the brain, because he spent the last few years, at least the last year solid, really studying not only what is happening in the brain, but testing exercises that can help people alleviate the symptoms and move on with their life. So he's actually a leader in the whole area because not very many doctors treat this on the planet.
What would be very frustrating is to have a condition like this and not have people know what it is, not having medical science behind it, So in other words, when you get sick, when you get the flu, everyone knows. It would be very difficult to have something where no one knows.
Nobody understands.
And your reaction is very antisocial.
Yep. So
that's the worst thing.
Kelly Ripa has it. And Kelly Osbourne has it. There's a number of celebrities. Kelly went on a 2020 interview and was talking about it. And that's what she was talking about, is before she understood that there was an actual neurological problem, she's like, I just felt like the Hulk. I felt like a horrible person because she'd hear a noise and just want to go crazy.
Tourette syndrome like.
Yeah, they triggered into rage a lot. And think about having kids. Dr. Hatch brings up going on vacations. Like you have to have separate vacations almost. And a lot of these children get to a point where they almost have to live in a separate quarter. There's a few of his patients that I know have built casitas in the backyard where basically the child lives, or the mom or the dad, if that's the trigger noise, like their voice can sometimes be a trigger. Sometimes that person lives in the other area so that they can not trigger the child off. I mean, it is just a life-altering condition that Dr. Hatch has figured out, and that he has some awesome exercises that can help alleviate the symptoms. And we have sat him down. This is going to be a two-part interview, so get comfy. This is part one of our chat with Dr. Hatch from Brain Rehab Clinic about misophonia. Here you go.
Talk 365 TV's Talking Wellness is brought to you by Brain Rehab Clinic with wellness team expert Dr. John Hatch.
Hey everybody, it's Holly Love, and today I am back at the Brain Rehab Clinic with Dr. John Hatch. Dr. Hatch, how are you?
I'm doing so good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for letting us come down. I am so excited about this interview. We have something very special happening today because Dr. Hatch is one of a few doctors globally that treat a condition called misophonia. It's very rare, but people who suffer with it, it's a lot of problems, pain, suffering. It is a life-ruining condition. And Dr. Hatch not only has figured out how to correctly diagnose, treat, and greatly reduce the symptoms, but become really a leader and an expert in this field, an innovator as far as the way that you're doing it. And so today I'm excited to announce that not only is he going to explain how he came about knowing this information, he's going to share some tips and some exercises on ways that if you're struggling with misophonia, by the end of this thing you are going to be able to greatly reduce some of the symptoms you're experiencing by learning some of the exercises as well as learning more about the condition. So Dr. Hatch, without further ado, let's dive in and let's start by how did you find this disease? How did it find you? And how did you develop this protocol that is working so well?
Yeah, it definitely found me.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I had even heard about a year ago. A dear patient had walked in and said, my daughter suffers from misophonia. I hadn't known what that was, and so I said,
oh, wow.
What is she dealing with? And basically most misophonia is diagnosed with an inability to take the sound of chewing. It's mouth noises, nasal noises, sneezing, coughing, slurping, and it creates a reaction in them that's aggressive or very annoyed by a sound, sometimes even into anger. And so children are isolating themselves, they're dropping out of school, parents have to do homeschooling. Worst case, Sometimes the parents have to put that child in its own room and the child isolates themselves. They don't eat with their family, they don't eat outside. Everything is catered, even vacations. Imagine going on a vacation on a 3 to 6 mile drive and no one in the car can eat. And then when they get out, it's everyone go in different directions, eat your food, and then come back and get in the car because one child, or maybe two, are suffering from a reaction or the illness of misophonia.
And this isn't just being bothered by somebody who's a loud chewer.
No.
This is where they have a reaction similar to having an anxiety attack or a panic attack, and then like you said, which can lead to rage where it's an outburst, which I imagine with smaller, younger children would be incredibly hard to go in public because there's no rationalizing or reasoning with them. Maybe the older ones, it's something they can't even control though, let alone the younger ones, right?
Absolutely.
So those are some of the symptoms that you experience when you have misophonia. What is the cause? What's happening?
So that's been the great thing to discover and figure out, is right now research on it, it's so new. It's only been started or coined the phrase misophonia for the last few years. Prior to that, no one knew what it was. They thought it was just someone who had oversensitive to sound. But prior to that, they weren't sure what was happening, what was going. Now, new research shows that there's a combination of dysautonomia with a negative emotional wiring. And we're trying to juggle the two, and that's what all the research has been showing is, do you do this, do you do this? Do you do this first and then this? Well, what I started doing is looking at how is this brain working and what are the parts of the brain that are involved with everything that's going on. Not just a single segment, but all of it. And so with the very first patient that came in, I simply said, let's talk neurology and let's understand what is going on in the cortex. So we drew out the patterns of where sound travels and how you interact it and where the negative emotion is. And I looked at it and it was just like a light bulb. This is the area of the brain that's not working, and now how do I change it? And so that's what's fun is here at the clinic we can do a bunch of diagnostic tests to find areas that run through that pathway of the brain, and if we can change it, if we can see the findings and then make changes to those findings and see that outcome, we watch their symptoms reduce over time. And it's been incredible, humbling, and amazing for those that have seen the changes.
That concludes our first part of our interview with Dr. John Hatch from Brain Rehab Clinic on misophonia. If you're liking this content, don't go anywhere because we'll be right back with part 2 and the exercise that you're all wanting to learn when we get back right after this.